maybe one. I mean, what's the biggest seed left? A 10?
A 10.
That's what you're seeing because all these players, they want to do a year, and then they want to go to Kentucky. They want to go to UCLA. They want to go to Michigan State. So that's what you're going to see.
Number 10 seed, by the way, Braylon. And, oh, by the way, that 10
Arkansas
seed
I was about to say
is Arkansas, who is
say.
only coached by one of the great coaches of the last 25 years in John Calipari. And, look, I'm okay with it because I like the big schools. I didn't, for as much as we love the upset in the NCAA tournament, I do not want to see FAU and San Diego State in the Final Four.
Right.
I don't want to see that.
I agree.
I'm sorry. I think it's great in the first round, second round, all that stuff. I think it's great when they completely upset to get to the Final Four, like George Mason did a couple of years. VCU. FAU, San Diego State,
Valpo,
whatever the case may be. I think it's great when they actually win, but then you get to the Final Four and you're like, I don't want to see this team here.
Yeah, right.
So it does it ruins the allure of March Madness. There's no doubt about it. Braylon, we talked last week when our friend Jack Golke was here, last year's tournament hero, and he lit it up for Oakland against Kentucky. There are currently over 700 players in Division II in the transfer portal. Over 700.
That's wild.
Today, the Division I transfer portal opened up. And you know what? There are teams still in the tournament where the players have to make a decision whether or not they're entering the portal. We just saw it at Michigan. Today, Scottie Pippen's kid has entered the transfer portal. And to be honest with you, I don't know what that means. Does Pippen
I don't even know who he played for.
Michigan?
I don't even know that.
I understand that. But
crazy?
Like, is this kid, he's been practicing all year long, does he now not earn the right to stay with Michigan for the tournament run? I don't know what happens.
I think he does.
I'm asking.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think he does.
But still, I mean,
it happened in college football last year. One of the final teams. A kid was transferring, yet he could still finish the year with that
that's
team.
a really uncomfortable spot to be. It's just the wild, wild west. I understand it for the player, but I think this is terrible for the sport.
So do you think there should be like a free agency period or something?
Yeah, and it should be after the season.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
first
yeah.
and foremost.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no reason why you can't wait another 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, let's start there.
Yeah, I don't think what I'm about to say has anything to do with that, but this is something that I did notice. You talk about the kind of like the breakthrough, the SEC conference, 14 teams they had. Big Ten, another 8 teams that they had. They're the dominant ones. Now with NIL, I think back in the day, and this is crazy, tell me if I'm wrong, players in basketball went to the schools because of basketball. Like you went to the schools, all right, I want to go to UCLA. You know what I'm saying? I want to go to insert the teams that you watch. I think now kids are going to the schools where the football teams are good because the rise in the SEC, 14 teams in the tournament, kids want to go to teams in the SEC. SEC has been the football conference as well as the Big Ten, who had 8 teams. I think these kids are trying to find these NIL deals at schools that have great football. They no longer care about basketball. They no longer care about going to, it has to be UConn. It has to be Kansas. It has to be Michigan State. It has to be Arizona. I care less about them schools because I can go to SEC where I know Arkansas has a good football team, et cetera, go down the line, and oh, by the way, they're going to spend that money. That's why you see that rise in the SEC. It's money and it's football.
And when it comes to Michigan guys, too, because, you know, our good friend from Big D Energy, Neil Rule, was getting after Maz and I in our little station chat
I
this
didn't
week.
like that one thing you said.
Because, you know,
that's what he does.
He was poking us because he said, oh, it's nice to see that the Michigan fans are coming out. Michigan has done something that has never been done in the college basketball world before. They went from winning 8 games the previous year to now being in the Sweet 16 the next.
With a first-year coach.
With a first-year
first-year
coach.
coach.
So last year Michigan finished 8-24. This year they're in the Sweet 16. That has never happened in a 1-year turnaround before. And again, that's one of the positives of NIL. If you are a Michigan fan, you no longer have to wait to get a coach fired, get a coach hired, get his own players in, have that recruit that's a freshman or a sophomore turn into a junior or senior, and then maybe 3 or 4 years down the road, you can have an opportunity to compete in a Sweet 16 and, heaven forbid, win a national championship. 1 year. That's all it requires. 1 year. Do you have enough money in your program to hire the players that can get you to the Final Four, because that's all this is about now. And again, I'm fine with it because my school has money, and my school is going to be involved. But if you're not a Michigan fan, if you're not a Michigan State fan, if you're not a Duke fan or whatever, I think this is just a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing.
When Neil said that, I didn't respond. I had a lot going on Sunday, so no time to respond. But I just took it as this. You know, it's easy for Neil to talk about, oh, the Michigan fans are back now that they're in the tournament and where were you? I'm sorry that Michigan's not Oakland University, where you've had Campy for the last 45 years. I'm sorry that Michigan isn't Michigan State, where you've had Tom Izzo for 35 or 40 years or however long. Michigan this is where we've been. You got 1 year of Dusty, you got 4 years of Juwan Howard, you got, 15, you got 12 years of John Beilein, you got 6 of Tommy Amaker, you got 5 of Brian Ellerby.
Beilein put them on the map again.
100%. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How many different coaches is that? How many different styles is that?
Right.
How many different types of recruiting packages is that? How many different personalities is that? That's why Michigan doesn't have a consistent sense, and still somehow Michigan has been good in basketball. So miss me with that.
Whether it's Michigan, the Pistons, the Lions, and this is the problem that I have with a lot of people. Okay, the Lions all of a sudden were good, right? Lions have been good the last couple of years. And then there was that argument, well, you're not a diehard Lions fan. You're an SOL guy, and then all of a sudden they're good and you're hopping on. Will you allow these fans onto the bandwagon? I mean, we've talked about that before. What about the Tigers? You complain they suck all last year, and then all of a sudden they turn it around, have a 2% chance to get into the postseason. They do, and then all of a sudden Comerica Park is full. And I'll say it with the Michigan Wolverines and any other team. The Pistons this year are a perfect example. I will not be a fan of you if you suck. I'm out.
You're a fan. You're just not following them.
Yeah.
You're still a fan.
Okay, fine. Still a fan.
You're not losing. Neil busts our chops. I'm always going to be a Michigan fan. If they suck, I'm just not going to pay as much attention to them. So if you want to call me a fair weather fan, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But I am a true blue Michigan Wolverines fan.
Yeah, and again, you know, the point that I was trying to make is, yes, I pay attention to Michigan basketball when they're good. I pay attention to the Pistons when they're good. Before this year, I might have watched in the last 10 years, legitimately, 5 Pistons games.
Man, I didn't even watch 5.
Maybe.
I hadn't even watched
I'm being generous.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.
I get it.
Like, I'm sorry. My time is too valuable. My money is too valuable to support teams that suck.
Yeah.
It just is. And I just have too much going on. And I'm sure everybody else does too. And what I equate it to is these die-hard fans. You got to root for your team no matter what. You got to be
That's
there in the
gang
building.
activity. Like, that's literally gang activity.
Like, I'm just
Exactly.
like, if you went to a
what,
restaurant,
The colors.
right.
if you went to a restaurant
Yeah.
and you had 20 bad meals in a row,
Why are you there?
Yeah.
okay? You had 20 bad meals. Your experience is terrible. Are you going back for that 21st meal?
Nope.
Or are you going to wait until they get a new chef, till they get some new ingredients, till they get some new items on the menu, that you're going to get a good meal?
That's correct.
It's pretty simple. The chef and the ingredients on the Pistons over the last decade, and for Michigan over the last year, not great. For the Lions, not great for the last 60 years. You feel like they got it right. So I think it is okay, absolutely okay, for fans to come out of the woodwork and be excited that your team is in the Sweet 16. Braylon, I admit, I don't pay attention to basketball until March. And do you know why I don't pay attention until March? Because nothing else matters. Either you're one of the teams left or you're not. You go through all season, you get this one game. I mean, Michigan State was tied with 7.5 minutes to go in the game. I mean, and then they went on a crazy spurt there.
Yeah.
Michigan was down by 10 in the second half, and they came back. Okay, it's great, it's exciting, but if they look at St. John's, they picked a bad night to have a bad shooting night. And if you paid attention to St. John's all year, for what? You know what I mean?
Right.
What was your reward? What was your reward? So I don't care about conference championships in the regular season, because just ask St. John how important that conference championship was, that regular season conference championship was to their success of the season. Do you think St. John's feels like that was the success of the season? This is a sport you don't have to pay attention until a couple of weeks ago.
I say the same thing for NHL and NBA for the most part.
Yeah.
If I go to a game, I'm going for my enjoyment. I'm not going because I have to be there rooting for my team. The Red Wings, 82 games. And it's going to come down to the last 13 games to see if they're worth their salt, if they could snap an 8-year playoff drought. The Pistons, they have put on a great show this year, so I paid attention. And I've been to many games. There were a couple of years, the last 2-3 years, I hardly went to games. This year, I'm all over them. I wish I could go tomorrow. I had plans, but the Spurs are here tomorrow. I'd love to go see them.
Is Popovich and Wembanyama making the trip?
Oh, no, they're finished for the year. Anyway, it's just fun. Baseball, 162 games. Baseball is a different type of season. If you just want to go and just watch a game with your family, even if your team sucks, if your team sucks,
100%.
you can get in really cheap. You can't. If they're good, it's going to be harder to find a seat, but at least you're watching a good game. A lot of times, I just go to watch the other team, to be honest with you. And that's how I plan my stuff. And for the Lions, all those fans came out of the woodwork last year and the year prior, but last year especially. And you heard it. The people who were at that Washington game, that divisional game, the crowd was not the same because they were not the people that brought them up to that point. The people that were sitting there were paying the top dollar to get there because they were the fans that were just hopping on the bandwagon. So say what you want. There's different ways to look at your teams.
At the end of the day, you know, if Michigan goes out here and beats Auburn on Friday, #1 seed, Michigan wins that game, I guarantee you I'm going to feel the same as a person that's been cheering for Michigan for the last 40 years.
Same.
I'm going to feel the exact same. Their elation is not going to be any different than mine. My support for their team is no different than theirs. Like, Michigan coming into the season had the worst record in the Big Ten last year. They didn't win double-digit games. Juwan Howard, the last 3 years in Michigan, we've all said it. Flannel Salmon's come up here for 2.5 years and be rated an individual that at the particular time deserved it. You know, so where do we go with the season? I heard the Dusty May guy is good. I'm going to give it a watch. I'm going to give it a chance. Struggle in the beginning of the game. They don't have any guard play. They can't shoot. And then you blink and you look. And they won 15, 16, 17 in a row. They've got your eye. Now you're paying attention. Man, I like this Dusty May guy. Who's this Wolf kid? Who's this Golden kid? Oh, didn't he play in FAU? Oh, that's right. He was the Final Four. Oh, I see the correlation. The story brought us in. I never stopped supporting. I don't think anybody ever stopped supporting Michigan. It's just how much can you take? Just like the Red Wings. A lot of Red Wings fans, 8 years, no playoffs. Last year, we almost made it. This year, we might almost make it. At what point do Red Wings fans, D-Mac, since you're Mr. 4-time Stanley Cup, at what point do you get to say, they got to do something to bring me back in? At what point as a fan do you get to say, this isn't good enough?
And how were you ever happy? Like,
At what point?
When bandwagon fans got on the Lions, I got happy about that because they're doing good. People are going to the games. I feel like you're unhappy when your team isn't doing good, and then they do good, and now you're unhappy because people are happy. It's like such a depressing way to live.
That's brilliant.
Such a depressing way to live.
It's brilliant.
The biggest annoyance with it all is at
Tell
the
that
end.
to Neil.
And that's what I was gonna say. The biggest annoyance of it all is for Neil. You know, I have to yell to get the point across. Is if I feel as though if you don't say any, like if you say anything about the franchise or a school, anything critical. Or anything that you can maybe do this or maybe change that, or you suck right now, then you're not a loyal fan. You've jumped off the bandwagon. Right. If being on the wagon for life means that I can't point out things that I don't like, it means I can't say, what the hell is this coach? What the hell is this player? What
Brad
the hell
Holmes.
was that move?
Brad Holmes.
Exactly. If I can't say that, then I'm good. I'll be a bandwagon fan. I'll be a bandwagon fan because I like to address issues as they arise. Point
and you need to have a little hope in your organization too. I mean, for the Lions specifically, what did the organization give you that ever made you want to stay a fan of that team, other than a bunch of heartache and a couple of Hall of Fame players?
Yeah,
like the individual play from some of the players, but there was never any real hope that they were building towards a Super Bowl championship or anything like that. I mean, in college basketball, college sports was a little bit different. Now I don't think it is. In college sports, like if you had a back in the day, if you had a new coach, like for instance, like during the Rich Rod years, I really did expect him to build a Big Ten championship. So I never left. You know, I felt like I was watching a story being told. It never happened, and I will maintain that if Rich Rod got a fourth year, they would have won double-digit games and been every bit as good as the Brady Hoke team. I believe that. You can call them. We'll never know.
I disagree.
And that's fine. You won't be right. I won't be right. We just are left with our opinions. You know? I mean, because we don't know.
He wasn't right for the system. He wasn't right for the University of Michigan. He wasn't right for Big Ten. He would not have won here.
And fair enough. I'm just trying to accentuate a point where, like, you would get a new coach, and you would feel some sort of hope about that. College sports now is year to year. I mean, even with Michigan, right? And I mentioned this with Michigan football. If they don't pay Bryce Underwood, I'm sorry. They're a 7 or 8 win team year in and year out because they just don't have a quarterback.
To your point, when Brady Hoke took over the job at University of Michigan, took over for Rich Rod, I remember the first spring game. First spring game was a time for former alums. He invited us all up there that Friday, and he had a whole presentation, showed us around the facility, which we know like the back of our hands, but he had a message for us. He told us the things that he was going to incorporate. He told us what it was going to be about. He told us that we would get back to the Michigan tradition. Now, this is 2011, so when he's saying this, this is 2011. We're all buying in. The optimism of getting the program back. I'm like, okay, you know what? He's familiar with the program. Mm-hmm. He was on the defensive line when I was there. So, yeah, all right, this makes sense. He's going to get Michigan back. In 2025, I don't care about nothing he had to say. Do you have money? Like, that's where we're at now.
Right.
Back at that point, I was optimistic. I said, okay, he can get the tradition back to where it's going to be. And Brady Hoke, maybe he is the guy for the job. Brady's got my support. Now it's not about that. Like, do you have the money? Michigan has the money. Michigan will get the players, and they'll be decent. That's what it is now.
Did you hear the kid on Maryland in the post game yesterday after they won?
Which one, Queen?
Yeah,
they're talking to McQueen. They asked
him,
him,
he's on the same high school team as Cooper Flagg, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they asked,
I did not know
they asked the kid, hey, how great a coaching job. What does your coach do for you guys? How did he get you here? Well, he's the guy that pays us the money.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Good answer.
He's the guy that pays us the money.
Good answer.
That's the number
There you
one
go.
answer on the board.
That's it.
It's so dumb.
What'd you do? He pays me the money.
But like,
I don't even like this guy.
You kind of don't even need one of these coaches anymore.
No.
Like,
Well, you kind of do.
Replace it
you
with
kind
AI.
of do. It
Yeah,
depends
if you
what
wanna
you
win,
have.
If you want to get to Sweet 16, you don't need
But
one of these coaches.
it depends what you have, right? I mean, you do need a coach. You do need somebody that can put it all together. But
You saying that we need a coach a little less. You still
Well,
need him, but he's not as
the
important
coach,
to the overall.
usually the coach used to have to be years of recruiting.
Yeah.
Years,
But what kind of recruiter
Like-
is he? It don't matter anymore.
So I say that here's an example I have. Okay? And I hate going back to this, but I keep talking about my own team before I talk about anybody else's team. If Sharon Moore is the coach at Michigan, or if Braylon Edwards is the coach at Michigan, does it matter as long as you're still getting your payday? Does it matter? I mean, if I offer you more money than any other institution in college, does it matter who the coach is?
I get what you're saying. Coaches don't matter as much on the back end. Maybe on the court they still matter.
Yes.
But you're saying like the recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, you
don't need all that.
recruit your tail off. Maybe you've got a guy that, oh my God, I got to go play for Tom Izzo at
Yeah, I
Michigan
get what you're
State.
saying. I get what you're
I
saying.
want my kid to play for Tom Izzo at Michigan State because if all things are equal, the coach does matter.
Yeah.
But all things are not equal anymore. I would send my kid to go play for Greg Campy, and Campy's a great, but I would send my kid to Oakland University over Michigan if Oakland gave him more money.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. Coach doesn't matter anymore.
What was more impressive this past weekend? Who had the best weekend, team wise?
Michigan State.
Michigan.
No, I think Michigan.
Michigan had the best
I believe
weekend.
No,
Michigan.
the whole tournament, not just those two.
Whole
The
tournament.
whole tournament. You still can choose Michigan. I was giving
Maryland.
Arkansas.
Maryland.
Arkansas.
Arkansas.
I think Arkansas.
Arkansas. Yeah.